Cool. So this is Nate Mesmer. I want to pronounce your name
Yeah, you can
correctly.
just say Nate Evanhoe. It's easier.
Okay. So this is Nate Evanhoe. He's a former collegiate track and field athlete from UC Davis, and he's continued his schooling. He has his master's in kinesiology. He also has a strong interest in plyometric training. We know that's a huge part of sprinting, so I'm super excited to kind of hear his thoughts on that. He also still trains and competes in masters meets, which is awesome. All while he's coaching. He's coaching some post-collegiate athletes, some pros, and he kind of mentors and coaches high school athletes as well. Um, so yeah, I found Nate through Instagram where he posts educational content. Definitely go check it out if you haven't. It's Pronate with Nate. And he posts a lot of educational content and kind of tells his story of how he is coaching his athletes in different ways and kind of how to get the most out of your body in a positive way and stay healthy, which is awesome. So I'm super excited to talk with him today. Nate, thanks for joining me today. Did I miss anything on that intro?
No, that's cool. That's perfect. Yeah, I was a track athlete in high school and college. I was junior college. Then I was at UC Davis. And that was over 20 years ago for context. Um, and so a lot has changed and also not a lot has changed, both in good and bad ways.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, even throughout my track career, I've noticed a lot of changes and shifts, and the sport is constantly changing. So it's cool to see those developments and kind of how coaching styles have changed as well. I'd love to hear kind of a little bit about that and like your background. I know I briefly touched on your background, but kind of how it led you to where you are now and what you're doing.
The interesting thing is I had a big break between track and field, collegiate, and then where I'm at now. And I think that helped me a lot. That was probably one of the most important things that happened. But before I get to that, I would just say, in regards to you saying, things have changed and whatnot in the last 20 years, had we had cell phones and, apps like this, to be able to go back, let's say, and look at the stuff that we were doing 20 years ago would be incredible. Both to see how far, we've come and maybe learn some things, you know, from the old footage, right, on what we were doing. That's something I've talked to older coaches about where they wish they had the content, from the 90s of the videos, the workouts that they did with some of these athletes. And so all they have is it's written on paper or it's from memory. Um, and that's where I think it's really big today on the difference, and we can get to that. But anyways, I was like okay in high school, and then I had a pretty successful like senior year of high school. And if it wasn't for going to junior college and doing track and field, I probably wouldn't have gone to college. So track and field kept me focused. Went to junior college, was able to run pretty fast, then went to UC Davis, and it was a great experience. But looking back, the training was not optimal. We didn't do any, we were sprinters. I was a 200, 400 athlete, but we didn't do any speed work. We just did endurance and tempo intervals. Um, one of the jokes was whoever gets hurt first will run the fastest at the end of the year because we'll be rested. We also, it was like we were in shape to run the 800 meters, but also bench press heavy. Like
Okay.
neither one of those things are really like great for the 200 and the 400 in my opinion. I mean, if you can run the eight, great, but if you don't have the speed for the four, then like it's like, what are you doing? Right after that, I was lucky to meet a coach. His name was Hideshi Okamoto. He was a Japanese national team coach. And, this was like 2003, 4, 2005. And I worked with him for 2 or 3 years. I actually opened a fitness training facility with him, and he like took me to Japan and like I did all this cool stuff. because of him, and he was a movement specialist, although he was a track coach. So this guy at the time was in his late 40s. He could still run and jump and sprint. When he was younger, he was able to be great from the jumps and the sprints all the way to the 5K. And he was just really good at understanding how to move the body. And so he could look at a baseball player knowing not maybe, well, he probably knew some things about baseball too, but he could look at really any sport and just tell you how this person is moving and, what's going on or maybe what's not going on. And at the time, it was kind of mind blowing to me, because I had never seen people look at movement that way. And that was a big light bulb changing experience for me. Um, and that sent me on a path of a whole bunch of things later on in life. For a while, I transitioned into, I was producing events. And so that was like my day job, and I was producing all kinds of events. And that led to like festivals and concerts. And I worked for the Obama campaign at one point. I did all this weird stuff. And then I was like, I need to get back to the healthy stuff and the running stuff. And so I had always kind of stayed somewhat in shape, but it was more gym shape, like lifting weights and things. And when I veered back into the space, this was well over a decade ago. I was just coaching people like for movement and for fitness. Um, and I kind of dabbled in, like I would go back to the track and try to like do some sprints or like run a lap hard or something, and then I would die. Uh, and part of it was is I wasn't in shape for it, or I was like too big. I was lifting too much weights, but I was very explosive. So then around 2015, I started to go like really deep into movement training, and that's what changed everything. We can go into that if more if you want, but I basically have since studied like so many different ways to move the body, uh, that when I then went back into track and field, which was somewhat recently, like 2018, 2019, I started to delve back in. And I realized that when I was looking at athletes now, I was looking at them much differently and had different tools to address potentially like maybe movement issues that they were having,
Yeah,
or pain perhaps. Uh, and then I also realized that even at the highest level with professional Olympic athletes, they were still doing a lot of the things that we were doing 20 years ago and hadn't really evolved.
for sure. Yeah. That's really interesting to me, and I do hear that a lot from coaches, just that, I mean, you can have a high school or college athlete and you have a pro, and you think they're going to be so perfect at all these different movements and have this whole other toolbox, which typically they do, but it's also they just have a lot more talent and they still have those movements and corrections that you can fix the same as a collegiate freshman might have. Um,
Mhm.
so it's interesting to kind of hear your background and perspective on that.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times I think the athlete is just very, very talented,
Hmm.
and maybe they're driven, and maybe they push through a lot of those deficiencies or imbalances or even pain and injury. And I think there's always going to be compensation. So, a lot of coaches who are coached at a high level will tell you, the best athletes are also often the best compensators. And they just figure out ways to get the job done. And so
Hmm.
sometimes you have to decide whether it's worth spending your time trying to fix something or let it be. But I feel like we're always in a process of getting better or learning more. And so, like, at any level, I believe we should be developing. And
Yeah.
one big problem I have with like the current state of things is, let's say at the elite D1 level and at the professional level, there's a lot of belief that development shouldn't really take place, that it's just about like competing or just, working out and going to a race. And I don't
Yeah.
believe in that at all. I think people can continue to get better. And I think if you look at someone like a Noah Lyles, like he refused to look at it that way, right? say whatever you want about him. I mean, some people don't like him, some people love him, but he decided that like he wasn't good at this thing, he's gonna work on it. I'm a little bit imbalanced over here. I'm gonna work on it. My hips like this, my toes like this. I'm gonna work on it.
Yeah.
And I've actually worked with his physio, human performance specialist, Dr. Joe Brown. I've been working with her recently, and she worked with him for 3 years and has a lot of information on different things. And we see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. But yeah, I think that there is always ways to develop, learn, get better, which is one reason why I'm always filming everything.
Yes.
Um, I I'm always blown away at how much athletes and coaches aren't filming themselves. And I'm like, you have a cell phone, like, you know,
Great tool right there
I mean, it's
in your
not even a
hand,
cell phone anymore. It's like way beyond that, right?
for
Uh,
sure.
it's an advanced camera computer, and you can just film everything that you do, um, and then look at it and see what it's telling you.
For sure. Yeah. Kind of going off of that, how are you using it in your daily routine? How are you using video, just kind of day to day
Mhm.
practice?
So I try to film everything. Um, and if I'm one on one with an athlete, oftentimes I'll be holding the phone. I figured out a way I can hold the phone, this like push button whistle, and the stopwatch at the same time.
Okay. Wait, I might want to learn more about that. How exactly does that work?
So you don't absolutely have to have the stopwatch if you have good video,
Mhm.
right? And we'll get into that too, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
if I have to choose, 99 times out of 100, I'm probably going to choose to film the rep itself. Sometimes if I just want to see the athlete move in real time, like, and not have to look at the video and look at the athlete, I will I just won't film it for some reason. But if it's an important rep or we're doing multiple, I try to film as many as I can, right? And so I'm filming potentially the warm up, and not just to create content for social media, but like looking at how they're moving on one day, I can look at how they moved on another day and see different things. Um, and we can go back and look. That's another big thing. If we're doing block starts, I'm filming that. If we're doing any sort of sprint reps or race modeling, I'm filming it. And then as you'll see, like if we look at the app, I have cones out in different segments, and then we're looking at splits and things like that, to either look at like some sort of velocity or speed in between certain markers, or it's more about the totality of how they're getting from point A to point B, C, D, and like this model that's like comparative to like where we want it to go. So if it's a 400-meter runner and there's a certain model that we're executing, like if their goal is to run 44.8 seconds, we have to have like a certain model that's going to lead them there. Um,
Yeah,
Unless they're just like insanely talented, you
for
know,
sure.
and they could
They
just
can
stumble upon a
just go.
44-second 400,
Yeah,
which there's only a few human beings on the planet like that.
for
And
sure.
even then, that's not, we don't, who knows what work they were doing. But um, so yeah, like I would encourage people to just film everything because you can learn and the coach gets to learn and then you can show it to the athlete. The athlete gets to see it. It's very, very powerful. And then it's also just in the camera itself, in the phone. I know there's some talk, you said you guys might work with free lap and stuff like that, but for me it's very flexible. I can just bring it with me, and film it.
Yeah,
The other thing is it's huge is I have clients that are remote and I only know what they show me, right? So if they just say, "Hey coach, yeah, I did your workout and these are the splits," I mean, who knows if it's accurate or what it looked
for
like.
these real splits. Yeah,
Yeah, and so if they actually send me video, like this was my workout, this is what it looked like, or they send me their race,
Yeah.
I can go and I can look. I'm like, yeah, that was great. That looked great. Or, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, how are you learning as an athlete without kind of seeing that aspect? You can hear what your coach is saying, you can feel what you're feeling, but it doesn't always align with what is actually happening. And that's something huge for me, at least. I need to kind of see it. It helps me so much. I can feel I'm executing a cue, I'm doing something, and then I look at the video and I'm not. So
Mhm.
just kind of, yeah,
Yeah,
learning.
and you're a heptathlete, so you're doing, 7,
Exactly.
8 plus events potentially, like, depending on what you're training. So yeah, like technically speaking, if the athlete can see themselves and start to learn based upon the feel of doing it and then seeing it, and if it starts to match up, oh,
Yes.
what I'm feeling is actually showing up
Yeah,
on the screen, that gives you a lot of belief and confidence.
for sure. Yeah.
And especially if you can go back and look at an old video, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, I used to look like this. Now I look like this. Gives you even more confidence to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, tell me about, I know you're talking about video in general, but tell me about kind of how Onform specifically is maybe your choice of video and kind of maybe how you started using it or why you use it specifically.
I'm not sure how I found it. I think somebody must have recommended it to me. I'm sure it was some sort of coach must have said that they used it. And I know that like it's also been used for golf, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it's been a game changer for me because I was I was always filming things, but to get like splits and stuff was way harder, using like rudimentary methods, or like having to literally use a stopwatch while you're watching the video, which is better than nothing. But um, now I know like some people love using like some different types of timing gate systems,
Yeah.
whether it's like chip based with an app or actual, beams or something. I don't really have time to set that up on a daily basis. Like for maybe for like a really important, time trial situation, you're training to run the 40-yard dash, or you're doing some sort of, 100-meter work, and you want to get the 30-meter split or the full 100-meter split or something.
Yeah.
I can see where that would work, but for me, it's like, well, I want content and video and data on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
I'm already bringing way too much stuff out to the track every day, like
Yes.
a huge backpack and wheeling in some
All
stuff,
the, yeah.
blocks. You have even more probably, items,
Yes.
implements. Uh, so anyhow, like video is really, really accurate if you have a good angle and you have like clear markings and cones set up, right?
Yes.
And there's also a couple different equations that you can use to time the athlete from their first step. So, you know, for years, like coaches have just gone off of movement or a whistle and they're, click. And if you talk to a lot of elite collegiate or professional track athletes, they all will have jokes about different coaches like watches and their accuracy. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, this guy's watch is crazy. Like, no way I'm running that fast,
Yeah.
or it's slow. It's not, you want it to be as accurate, I think, as possible because you don't want to go into a meet thinking, oh, I'm running this,
Exactly.
and then
Yes.
it's not that way. So using some basic equations on how to time it, you can also compare and contrast with other things that you're seeing on the track. Like maybe you film it and then you do the stopwatch. You have an idea of where that was, and then you don't necessarily have to go to the video right away. You have a good idea, but because you have the video, you go back and you look and you double check, and that's something we can talk about too. Because I catch myself
Yeah.
making mistakes, and that's pretty cool that I have the video to go back and look at it. But as long as you have the cones out, the markings, and you have good video angles, um, you can get incredibly accurate splits.
Yeah.
It's almost as good as if you had, you know, the most expensive Olympic timing. And I would actually argue that a lot of times when you see those, like some of those times from like the Omega timing, like some
Hmm.
of those splits are not correct.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And you think about like relay splits as well, and there's always like some questions there because
yeah.
it's timing it from a certain point versus when someone's actually getting the baton and how far they're actually running. Um,
Mhm.
so I know we've kind of
Yeah.
used
Yeah,
settings.
and if you're just also looking at data that's just numbers and not video,
Yeah.
you're like, oh wow, this person ran super slow or something. And it's like, well, if you watch the video, like it was the worst handoff in the world.
Yeah. And they got the baton here and
Yeah,
passed off here. Yeah.
totally. Or it was like a monsoon that was happening and like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
That's,
yeah.
I mean, all good considerations. That kind of sparks a question too, when you're with your athletes at practice, kind of give me an example of how they're kind of accepting that feedback or like receiving the feedback that you're giving them from videos. Like how is that usually received from them?
So the larger groups is harder,
Yeah,
right? I feel for any high school coach who's under resourced,
sure.
under supported, definitely underpaid. Um, if you're in that type of a setting and let's say you're the only coach and you have like 50 sprinters, you're not going to be able to film everything. Now, that being said, there's going to be certain workouts that you still want to make sure that you do film.
Okay.
Also, you have 50 sprinters, you could designate them and be like, look, you're filming this like today, you guys
Yeah,
are taking turns with this camera. Like, I'll give the phone to some of the athletes. So once they start to see themselves and, they get breakdowns and things like that, they'll start to ask to be filmed or they'll start to ask for you to like send them the film or share the film with them.
yeah,
And that's also a good way to see like who's serious,
yeah,
right? Um, if you're sending an athlete film and they never respond about it, they'd never ask you about it, they don't ask for any technical help, usually that means they're not that serious about the sport yet. That might change at some point. But with the younger, more developed folks, developmental folks, I think it's important to try to teach them and give them good information early on. I've also worked with many collegiates who weren't taught many things, and so they're performing at a high level in college, and maybe they don't even know how to do like basic drills, bounding, like different types of cycle, dribble, skip things. Uh, and you're like, wow, this person has achieved a lot without learning that much. If we can just teach them a little bit more here and there, give them a little bit more awareness and control, they're just going to get better.
yeah,
And so that would be another way to incorporate video. I won't name the school, but an athlete contacted me not too long ago and wanted me to help, and I'm like, well, I can't coach you. You're in an institution with a coach. Like, I can give you my suggestion. And
yeah,
so I had asked this athlete, what are your coaches telling you during practice? And he's like, well, not much. I'm like, so you're not getting that much feedback from them. Um, maybe he needs to ask for more feedback, but they're not giving him much feedback. And so I said, well, are they filming you? And this is at a big D1 school. And he's like, no, they're not filming me, at practice or any of the sprinters. They weren't filming very often, or at all. And so I said, well, that's on you then. You got to go get a tripod and film yourself,
yeah,
or have one of your teammates film you and you film them. Maybe the coach puts two and two together and starts to see that filming is something that you want to do, and then maybe they start to film you as well. But
yeah,
you're going to have to take matters into your own hands, and I think that's true at any level. So high school kids should be filming themselves if their coach, you know, like a high school coach could have like 250 people on the team.
Yeah. They don't
And
have time to film every single person,
yeah,
but
but
yeah,
the athlete themselves could start to do it at whatever level, you know, pro, collegiate, etc. And so the more that we talk about it, the more that we show it, the more it becomes normalized. And then I think the kids or the athletes, the adults, depending on how old they are, they will want to be more involved and they'll be more receptive that it's constructive, it's educational. It's not
exactly.
a critique that something's wrong with you, you know.
Yes, for sure. I definitely agree. I think like the first few years in college, we didn't use that much video. And then we ended up getting Onform and it just helped tremendously. Like I know my coach is telling me something, but I'm an 18, 19-year-old. I'm super underdeveloped in this sport. And so I'm not really feeling it every time. So it helps to kind of see that. And so especially at the high school age, I think that's so important to get in tune with your body and like figure out what your movement feels and looks like for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, the number one thing for me is movement first. So going all the way back to 20 plus years ago when I first worked with that one coach from the Japanese national team, it was always movement first. Look at the movement. So I'm not coaching track first, or if it's an event, I'm not if this person's a 200 400 meter athlete, I'm not coaching the 200 400 meter first. I'm coaching the person in front of me and their individual movement, their story, their personality, their vibe, their belief system, whatever that might be. You know, you have to understand on some level like their history, uh, and that takes a lot of work, right? I always say the coaching is, you know, math, science, art, and history, right? You have to like take into consideration all these things. And so I think some athletes will respond sooner to video and critique and learning and things like that. But at some point, if you want to be really, really high level or great, you have to start to become, you know, a technician or interested in mastery. Uh, you don't necessarily have to want to become a coach, but
Yeah.
you should be able to you should have the ability to coach, right?
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
as a hep, I'm sure like you can see another athlete and see certain things that they're doing and
Yes,
make
for
sense
sure.
of it. And
Yeah, and that takes a while. It takes learning, but you always gotta keep, I mean, video especially just kind of looking at that and like knowing what you're seeing instead of like, whoa, that was a far jump. Well, why did that person jump far?
yeah,
How what was his approach? How was his takeoff foot?
yeah,
Everything like that. So definitely has
yeah.
been for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure you see athletes who do something amazing and maybe there's something to be learned from it, but also maybe that the way that they move is not the way that you move. And so
Yes.
maybe that won't work for you the way that it works for them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's very individual. You see sprinters all the time, maybe with different techniques, and it's like, well, that's not how I run or how I move.
Mhm.
You have to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, people are always wanting this like magic program or workout, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like I see a lot of people because I'm in Los Angeles, and so like I mean I see City McLaughlin train all the time, right? Over the last 3 or 4 years, I see her all the time, and I'm good friends with Malachi Davis, who's like her like movement specialist person, and we kind of joke sometimes where people will ask about, you know, what's the workout that she does that like I could do with my athlete or something, and it's like there is none, you know, like whatever she's doing, like you can't just take her template and just like you know broadly apply it on someone who's not her. And she's also so good, like I jokingly say she could just jog and do jumping jacks and like have the world record, right?
Yeah.
And that's not going to work for anybody else.
Yeah.
So, like, you got to figure out what's going to work for you or for your athlete, right? I also laugh oftentimes when I hear these coaches that are like, this one coach was trying to recruit an athlete that I was working with, and the coach was like, one of the first things the coaches said to like, the reason why you should come to this school is because I was a 44-second 400-meter sprinter.
Mhm.
And it's like, great, bro. Like, you were
Yeah.
44, that's really amazing, but like, how did you get there? And how does this have anything to do with this person getting to there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times athletes who are really, really good can't necessarily tell you why or how they were that good.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
Some of them turn out to be great coaches as well, but those
Yeah.
are the ones that really
Students.
got interested in learning the
Yeah.
craft, you know. Um,
Well, I kind of want to go into some video and maybe like some videos that you have and kind of how you are looking at movement in your videos, and then also kind of how you're using different tools to break down video.
yeah, I was gonna pull up a few videos. Let's see, I gotta share this thing here. See if this works.
Here we go. Yeah, got
Okay,
it.
good. We see that there. So I'll bring it back. Okay, so all right, so I'm in the app here. I'm gonna
Mhm.
clear this out. And so
Yep.
this is one of my athletes. I don't really like saying my athletes. This is an athlete that I work with.
Uh-huh.
So this is Willington Wright. He's a 400 meter, 200 meter athlete. He's professional. He went to three colleges. Uh, he finished at UC Davis. He finished at UCLA. He was at Texas before that, Middle Tennessee State before that. He's been through a lot of different coaches, and he never had a race model. So he
In the
would just
400 or
yeah,
two?
he never had a race model. They just said like
Run.
at Texas they told him go out at 43 pace and if you and you'll die at 44. And that just never worked. It didn't actually happen. Uh, he kind of just would run fast and then see what would happen.
Yeah.
We went back and we went back and we looked at all of his data. Some of this I did myself, and some of it I had a friend of mine who does a lot of data stuff in the UK do this for me. But part of this I did using this app. We went
Mhm.
back and looked at a lot of his previous races, and lo and behold, the races that he finished the strongest in were the ones that he paced himself the most evenly. Um, and then the ones where he went out crazy, crazy fast and died, even if the time was okay, like it wasn't a stable model.
Yeah.
So we've been working on race modeling. So anyhow, in practice, that may be me telling him, all right, we're literally going to race model, a 250, 350 meter session here or rep at this given pace, okay? And we're trying to hit these times. Sometimes though, like on this rep here, I'll show you, which is a 150. So I'll just show it to you without using any uh, of the tech other than just playing it. So he's running this 150 here, and I had a specific thing that he was supposed to execute, and this was about feel, not
Mhm.
about time. Um, Now I can still go back and look at time. So what he was supposed to do here was he's doing a rolling 150 off the curve. So he's like 7, 8 meters back from the mark. And then I can time starting at the mark. And he's
Yeah.
supposed to basically just smoothly accelerate. And then he's supposed to like sprint or hit this middle zone here, which is 50 meters. And then once he gets to the next cone here, the final 50 meters, he was just supposed to carry or maintain without really pressing, and it should all feel relaxed.
Yeah.
Okay. So in doing that, uh, I did not time this rep until later. I
Okay.
just wanted to see it, and it looked good. But because he's such a talented, smooth runner, sometimes you don't necessarily know how fast he's actually going until you go and you look at the tape. So
Yeah.
the cool thing here is like I can zoom in on it, right? And he's not at that mark yet. So I can go, okay, I can sometimes you can see like the shadow, but basically like you're looking for the hip and sometimes the shadow, like I said. And so I'm like, okay, that's we'll start the rep there. It's a rolling or flying rep. Um, so that has to be taken into consideration. Uh, we can see that there. So he's rolling through this rep. Sometimes I'll have like 10-meter splits and get a lot of different data, but here I was only looking at these 50-meter segments. So rolling, he comes through this 50 off the curve, uh, right about 5.4. And like for him, that's actually not fast. For normal human beings, that's really fast.
So pretty fast. Yeah.
Uh, so he's not a normal human being. He's a little bit more advanced. And so that is that was him not really pressing. That was just smooth with a rolling start. I see he went 5.4, and then now this was the section that he's supposed to go faster. So you can see that he starts to put his feet down quicker, and he's not fully open. So that's another good thing about the video. I can
Yeah.
say, hey, you just split 4 point, I think he splits like 4.7 something here.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even he wasn't even fully opening up his stride. So so he's jogging quotes. He's jogging at 10-1.
Wow.
And then he still is not done with his rep, right? He continues through and carries it through. And then like if I can't see, I can just zoom in and he's a little bit past the mark, so he's right about there. And so he comes through that one at 5.28, and that's a 10.0 there. And so
Yeah.
he runs a 15.4 rolling 150. And at no point was I like, hey, you need to run 15.4. Uh,
No.
I had a pretty good idea, like knowing him, that uh, if we concentrate on like the feeling, that he would execute something pretty good. Um, but I didn't want him to press because he runs better when I tell him to. We jokingly will say, "Not you run this at 92%."
Yeah.
The time is faster than 92%, but if it feels like 92% in his brain, it's
You're
usually like
running.
a better thing. And so
Yeah.
this pace here is faster, potentially faster than 400-meter race pace, um, but it's relevant still, uh,
Yeah.
and it's relevant to the 200 meters. And in my opinion, it's still like valuable speed work, even though some people would say it's not max velocity, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
What's his feedback when you tell him, I mean, you told him to run at 90%, run relaxed. Like, I don't want you to hit a time. And then he's hitting these great times. Kind of what's his reaction to that?
So he gets it, but he needs to be like reminded, and athletes need to be like reassured, right? Um, the number one thing I would say is health and then confidence,
Mhm.
right? If you show up to a meet and you don't feel good, right, your confidence is going to be lower. And then if you've been struggling with some other things, or if you're not sure where you're at, it's going to be probably not a good outcome, right?
Yeah.
If you show up to a competition and you're feeling really good, rested, you're really bouncy and elastic, explosive, and you're confident, like I know what I've been doing in practice
Yeah.
and I've seen it on film. And if they know that their relaxed effort is still really good and it puts them in a good position to perform, they'll trust themselves, um, and they'll trust potentially what the coach has been telling them.
For sure.
If they don't trust themselves, they're not going to trust the coach, I don't think.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll trust the coach, but if they don't trust themselves, something's
Gotta
gonna
have both.
something's gonna go wrong, and usually it means that we're gonna like press, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
press and we stress, and
Try harder.
yeah, you look like this, and all the energy's going the wrong direction.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know that many athletes that can like go 100% and like execute fluidly. Uh,
Yeah.
of course, that's the highest level you can achieve. Maybe using Noah Lyles again as the example in the Paris Olympics in the 100-meter final.
Mhm.
Should have lost, right?
Yeah.
Because Shane Thompson or Fred Curley should have won that race.
Yeah.
They tensed up. He trusted his
It's-
race model. He trusted
yeah.
his ability. He stayed relaxed. He,
Instead of pressing. Yeah.
yeah, and like he literally like won because of like 1 centimeter or something,
Yeah.
right? So so
Oh, it's
yeah, I think it's always like a reminder, you know.
yeah.
And then like let's say you look at it and maybe the time's not fast, but did the athlete give you what you were looking for?
Yeah. Exactly. They're still getting something out of it in that
Yeah,
way.
yeah, exactly.
I think
Um,
like seeing this, if that were me running this rep, just, I mean, having the confidence that you're like, oh, I only ran that at 90% and it was really fast, or let's say it wasn't, but oh, I only ran that at 90%. So I could go faster. And I
yeah,
think it's reassuring. And sometimes your coaches, at least for me, like will do some hand timed reps. And I'm in the back of my mind, like slightly doubting, like, did I actually run that time? Like, if it was fast or
mm,
slow, I'm like, did coach press the timer at the correct time? So having video is super reassuring, at least for me, just being able to know, okay, this is exactly where I'm at. I don't have to question.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, I think the athlete will trust everything more when they get that data, right?
Yeah.
So Willington here in this video, he has a race. He runs tomorrow. He's gonna run the 400, and then if everything feels good, he's gonna run the 200. And we have a specific model that he's gonna execute.
Mhm.
Um, will he execute that model exactly the way that we've run it in practice? Who knows, right? Like I've already told him like this is just a model, right? So if I'm telling him, hey, you know what I want you to do for this 400-meter race, I want you to get to the 300-meter mark in 33 seconds flat and then finish and see what happens. If he goes and runs 33.2 and finishes amazing, he may actually run better than if he ran 33 flat. So this is just like a ballpark thing
Yeah.
that we're kind of targeting. Um, you know, if he goes a little bit faster than that, he runs 32 something and blows up. Okay, now we have that data. We can go back to the lab, so to speak, and just see what that tells us.
Mhm.
Um, one thing though is we've talked about this with him is there's a lot of different ways you can get to the same point.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to get him to get to this certain point using the least amount of energy, right? Because in the 400 meters, you know, it's extremely demanding and there's so many different things going on. You have your anaerobic aerobic balance, you have this whole lactate shuttling process. People hit the wall, they call it lactic. It's actually some other things that are going on, but the long story short is like no matter what, it's going to be difficult. And so you're not doing yourself any favors if you redline it early.
Yeah.
And so with some of these elite folks, it's really the same thing as it is with like a high school athlete.
Yeah. For
The
sure.
model, the model can be the exact same, the math can be the same. It's just they're running at different paces.
And perceived effort, I think, is the same, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, if there's an elite female sprinter who runs 23 seconds flat and she's a 400-meter runner and she goes out in the first 200 of her 400 in 23.3, assuming that 23 is her real 200-meter max, she's going to blow up,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Now if she's actually capable of running 22 something and we just don't have a time for her, then that's a little bit
Yeah.
different.
For sure.
But right, and so to me, that's going to be similar to let's say it's a high school boy who can run 25 seconds. in the 200 and he goes out in 25.2 in the 400,
It's gonna, yeah,
it's gonna be a long day, you know, that last 100 meters.
it's gonna be rough. I've been there.
Mm-hmm. So I said to him, okay, we're trying to execute this model on Thursday. We'll see what happens, but you have already done it in practice.
Yeah,
You already know you can do it because like I didn't just tell you on the stopwatch. Like I sent you the video with the splits and you can see it for yourself and be like, "Oh yeah, I actually really did that."
exactly. And that feedback is helpful and it's reassuring, and he should have confidence going into tomorrow and this weekend.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that you're doing that. And I love that you're sharing these videos with them and kind of sharing that feedback in that way. Cause I think it can be so helpful.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to like maybe there's some features you can tell me about. Um,
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna ask you actually, have you done the side-by-side comparison and kind of comparing videos from maybe at the beginning of his, like,
like
let's say.
you can sync them up and look at them at the same time.
Yes, yeah, so you can do that. That's something I think visually is super helpful. And then also just from the point of tracking progression, you can compare
Mhm.
his 200 from the beginning of the season versus his most recent 200. And you can actually start them at the same time and sync them up.
Got
Uh,
it. Sometimes I use like I'll use the like some of the arrow features, you
yeah,
know, and it'll be like I'll use it for like a block start type of a scenario or some sort of
yeah,
acceleration, and I'll just try to give the athlete an idea of like where we want their body to be, if they're like leaning over too much or if they're standing up too much.
yeah.
Um, I know there's more advanced stuff like I haven't really used like like this thing, uh like this.
Skeleton, yeah. I mean, so something with that, I think, especially for maybe just learning your body awareness, maybe for younger athletes or whoever. But if you're in a block start and you're coming out of the blocks super hunched over, and your coach is telling you that, and you're like, no, I swear I'm keeping my head down.
Mm-hmm.
But putting this on shows you with no fault kind of where you are in space. It's a two-dimensional kind of visualization, and it can really kind of help show you where you are.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
like if you look at this position here that he's in, it's not bad, but I can, you know, he's not fully opening up as if this was an all-out sprint.
yeah,
And I don't know, I keep bringing up Noah Lyles. I mean, he's just like technically really good. So, like, if you look at one of his maximal accelerations, like you'll see his arm, you know, bigger, his knee will be bigger, like some of the same positions, actually. I mean, Willington can get into a lot of those positions as well. But um,
sure.
yeah, I haven't used that as much. One thing you just told me about when we talked prior was, which I'm going to start using, is the voiceover.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, That's because then I can just critique something straight away and send it out to like an athlete or a client.
Exactly. Yeah. So you can record kind of the screen and your voice and do your markups and then save that as a new video and send it off. So really good for remote coaching. You can also add your athletes into Onform and then
Okay.
you can see who's viewing their videos. So I know you were kind of mentioning before, like seeing who's really interested, who's asking for their videos. With Onform, it'll show you who's actually viewing their videos after practice.
Mm,
So you can kind
okay.
of keep tabs on that and see what your athletes are doing. But yeah, tons of functionality in there. But I just think it's really cool that, I mean, you get so much use out of this app, just videoing and timing, which
Yeah.
is quite unique. And there's tons more functionality we could go into. But
Yeah.
I was super intrigued just to kind of see the way that you're using it. And it's been really cool to kind of hear the whole philosophy behind all of it. So
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, if there's any new things that are coming out or whatnot, keep me in the loop.
yeah,
And then I'll be continuing to, you know, feature some of this stuff like on my social media. I'm actually starting to slowly put together I'm gonna put together some sort of course program for like 400-meter training.
Mm.
Um, and part of that will feature like, hey, you you need you need the data, like you need to understand
Yeah,
the math, you know. Um, you know, you don't necessarily need to tell yourself I'm going to run 11.1 right here, but like you need to have felt it in practice and know what that feels like so that you can have some awareness of what it is that you're doing out on the track. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, maybe I'll do a little recommendation in there, like, you know,
yeah. We would appreciate that. And thank you so much for your time today. I think this will be super helpful for any type of coach just trying to kind of better themselves and learn more about what they could be doing. And yeah, it's been super helpful. So I really appreciate you coming on here today.
yeah, absolutely. It's been great talking to you. If you need me for anything from the heptathlon, let me know.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely always use some help because there's a lot of events across the board. So I'm sure I could use some help.
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
Cool.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks.